Peace. Today, I wanted to build about the relationship of our alphabet to mathematics, and more specifically, the supreme alphabet to supreme mathematics. I've been seeing this discussion going on, and there seems to be a level of unclarity with some 5% who don't understand that correspondence. And I've also seen people boldly say that there are no numbers next to letters. And I wanted to just share my perspective on that, not only as a 5%, but also as a professional educator. I've taught for over 20 years. My main focus has been early childhood development. I'm literally sitting inside of my Atlantis school for gifted youngsters. And that's how much education has meant to me, that I've invested my time, my finances, my sweat equity in literally building a site for children to learn in terms of the growth and development. I've also just accepted an adjunct professor position. So I teach as a professor at Niagara University in the political science department. And I co-teach a course around advocacy and organizing as it relates to justice. So I share that to say, I kind of know a little bit of what I'm talking about. And willfully, those of you who are watching this will gain a little bit more insight into why it's important to have these discussions and to clarify what it is. Because ultimately, our position on this is our segue or introduction to education and growth and development for our children. And if we're not in the right position as it relates to this, then ultimately our future generations are not going to benefit from that. So first, I think it's important to understand that anytime we talk about language, regardless of what geographic location, what country, all language is based upon an alphabet. And that alphabet is constructed in a contiguous way. Contiguous just means sequential order. So, in other words, if we're looking at our alphabet that we use, it wasn't just arbitrarily constructed. It's not gumbo, right? There is a certain sequence or order that the letters in our alphabet follow. So now we can sit and debate and go back and forth and say it ain't no number one next to the letter A. It doesn't change the fact that the letter A is the first letter in the alphabet. And that's what I introduce children to when they're first learning how to even communicate. So keep in mind that when we talk about the growth and development of children, children all go through a pre-verbal phase of their growth and development, and that's in their formative years. So what is a pre-verbal phase? It's a phase of their growth and development where they don't communicate. The way that they attend the world and what they process and what they observe, they don't have the language yet to articulate that. It is only through immersion of being amongst others and being exposed to phenomena that they start to learn the language, right? So just like all of us, if we've been to pre-K or we've been to kindergarten, we learn the alphabet. And many of us learn to sing it. A, B, C, D, E. What that is it's a contiguous construction of the alphabet. It's showing you that there is a sequential order to these letters in this alphabet. Regardless of what you want to believe, the 24th letter in that alphabet is X. We could say ain't no number 24 next to it or whatever, but it doesn't change the inherent placement or value of X within an alphabet. I hope that makes sense. So now, when children have difficulty understanding that an alphabet is contiguous or that there is a sequential order of these letters within an alphabet, it is very difficult for them to actually write words or to construct words. Why? Because they don't even know the place value of the letters to begin with. So let me show you something. This is my whiteboard with sight words on here. And they're called sight words because it teaches children how to recognize words on sight. that are commonly used within our language. It's difficult for a child to recognize sight words if they don't even know where the letters come from to begin with. So it's important that a child knows and understands that the first letter in the alphabet is A. So when they have that basic foundation of knowing the sequential order or how an alphabet is constructed in a contiguous way, it's easier for them to be able to take those letters and to rearrange them in a different sequential order to construct words. But it's hard to be able to do that with words if you don't even know where they come from to begin with. And if you're not able to construct words, it's going to be difficult for you to read and write. If it's difficult for you to read or write, it's also going to be difficult for you to communicate. So starting off from that basic foundation sets you on not only a cognitive trajectory, but also a communicative trajectory. It sets you on a trajectory of literacy. And that is the basic foundation that all children need to understand, because if it's difficult for them to grasp that, you're going to see developmental delays. And that is oftentimes what I see with adults, developmental delays, because they never got that basic foundation. That's why they may have difficulty spelling. That's why they may have difficulty having a sense of literacy or reading or writing, because they never got that basic foundation. So now, there's no way to debate that. Every letter in our alphabet has an inherent placement or value when that alphabet was constructed. It's the exact same thing with any kind of language that you're talking about. None of it is gumbo, and none of those symbols or glyphs or letters were just thrown together in an arbitrary way. They were constructed with a sense of order and sequence. That is an inherent mathematical relationship to that alphabet. There's no way to debate that. So now, there are some 5%ers who are very creative, and they may take what I just said and get very expressive with that relationship of the supreme alphabet to the supreme mathematics. So in other words, they may take a word like half. So when you look at the word half, H is the 8th letter, A is the 1st letter, V is a 22nd letter, and E is the 5th letter. Some 5%ers may take the numerical placement value or the corresponding number of its placement in an alphabet and say, okay, I'm going to add up 8 and 1 and 22 and 5, and I'm going to add all of those numbers up, and I'm going to say that the word have borns this. So they will come up with a number that corresponds to the placement of the letters in that and say, well, this means that or whatever. I was never taught that way. There's some 5%ers that do that, and I can see why some people may say that is not right and exact or whatever, because it's kind of like you're doing a little bit too much, like keep it simple. But that still does not change the fact that the letter H is the 8th letter in our alphabet. The letter A was the first letter in the construction of our alphabet. The letter V is the 22nd letter, and the letter E is the 5th letter. It doesn't change any of that. So I will that this was inspiring, empowering, and educational. I see I'm coming up on like the 10-minute mark, and I really didn't want to take all of that much time. Yet I do think that this was a discussion that was important to have. And willfully, I share some things for people to think about as it relates to not only the importance of understanding that alphabets are constructed in a contiguous or sequential order when you look at the letters, but also the importance of understanding that when it comes to constructing words, and then its correspondence impact in literacy, reading, writing, communication. and how when you see communities where there's a lack of ELA, or children who have access to literacy, who understand all of these different intersections of language, that you're oftentimes going to see a disparity in children who are growing up communities like this, and then also how it impacts a lot of adults who be having these type of discussions online. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments, and if there's anything else that I could add on about as well, just let me know. My email is atlantisbuild@gmail.com. Peace.